Subscribe to Hollow Whisper Tales and unlock the secrets of the night. Some doors should never be opened. Some stories should never be told. But once you start listening, you can never unhear the whispers. In a small village nestled between green hills, there was an old, abandoned house. The villagers whispered stories about it. They said it was haunted by a ghost named Eliza, a girl who had lived there many years ago. She had a sad story that no one really knew. Each night, light flickered from the windows, although no one dared to go near. 3 friends, Lily, Max, and Ben, were curious about the house. They often talked about it at school. One sunny Saturday, they decided to explore the old place. Armed with flashlights and snacks, they set off, excitement bubbling in their hearts. "Do you think we will see Eliza?" Lily asked, her voice a mix of fear and thrill. "Maybe," Max replied, trying to sound brave. "But it's just a story, right?" Ben just grinned. "Let's find out." As they approached the house, the sun began to set. The air felt cooler, and a gentle wind blew, rustling the leaves. The house looked even scarier up close, with its broken windows and creaky door. Max pushed the door open, and it groaned as if warning them to stay away. Inside, the air was thick with dust. Spider webs hung from the corners, and the floorboards creaked under their feet. They switched on their flashlights, beams of light cutting through the darkness. The light danced on the walls, revealing faded pictures of a girl and her family. "Look." Ben pointed to a large mirror covered with a cloth. Curiosity got the better of them, and they pulled the cloth off. The mirror shimmered, and their reflections stared back. But something was off. The reflection of the room was brighter and seemed alive, while the real room felt cold and empty. Lily felt a chill go down her spine. "Let's keep exploring," she suggested, trying to sound confident. They walked into the living room, where an old piano stood. Dust covered the keys, but when Max lightly pressed one, it played a haunting note that echoed through the house. Suddenly, the friends exchanged nervous glances. "I don't like this," Ben whispered, his earlier bravado fading. Ignoring the fear creeping into their minds, they climbed the staircase. The steps creaked loudly, but they continued until they reached the 2nd floor. There, they found a bedroom, filled with more dust and old toys scattered around. On the bed was a dusty doll with glassy eyes. Lily picked it up, brushing off the dust. "I wonder if this belonged to Eliza," she said softly. In that moment, they heard a faint whisper, like a soft breeze carrying words they could not understand. "Did you hear that?" Max asked, his voice tense. "I did," Ben said, looking around cautiously. "Maybe we should go." Before they could leave, the door suddenly slammed shut behind them. The sound echoed, causing their hearts to race. They pulled on the door, but it wouldn't budge. Panic set in as they realized they were trapped. "What do we do?" Lily cried, her hands trembling. "Let's find another way out," Max suggested, looking for a window. As they searched, they heard another whisper, clearer this time. "Help me." It came from a corner of the room, shrouded in shadows. The friends moved closer, their hearts pounding. In the corner stood a figure, pale and translucent. It was a girl about their age, with sad eyes and long hair. "I'm Eliza," she said softly. "Please, help me." Lily stepped back, but something made her stay. "What do you need help with?" she asked, her voice shaking. Eliza pointed to a locked trunk at the foot of the bed. "They trapped me here. You must open it." Max looked at the trunk. "How do we open it?" "It needs a special key," Eliza replied, her voice barely a whisper. "It's hidden in the house." Determined to help, they began searching the room, looking under the bed and behind the dusty curtains. Time seemed to slow as the whispers of Eliza guided them. With every passing minute, fear mixed with hope. Finally, Ben found a small key inside an old book on the shelf. "This might work," he exclaimed, holding it up. They rushed back to the trunk and inserted the key. With a click, the trunk popped open, revealing old letters and a necklace sparkling in the dim light. Eliza smiled, but it was a sad smile. "Thank you. Now I can be free." She reached for the necklace, and as she touched it, the room filled with a warm light. Suddenly, everything changed. The walls shimmered, and the dust seemed to vanish. The house came alive, colors brightening as joyous memories flooded back. Eliza's spirit grew stronger, her sadness lifting. "I can finally leave this place," she said, her voice now filled with joy. The warmth enveloped the friends, and they felt a lightness in their hearts. As Eliza rose high above them, she smiled one last time. "Thank you, friends. You freed me. Remember, not all ghosts are scary." With that, she vanished, and the friends were left in the now warm and vibrant room. The door swung open on its own, inviting them outside. They stumbled out into the cool night air, relief washing over them. They looked back at the house, now glowing softly against the dark sky. The stories of Eliza were not just whispers of horror, they were tales of sadness and freedom. The friends promised to tell others about their adventure, reminding everyone that curiosity sometimes leads to unexpected revelations. Story number 1. As they walked back home, they laughed and talked about their adventure. The old house may have been spooky, but it held a deeper story, one that they would share for years to come. The legend of Eliza would live on, but now it was a story of hope and friendship. Story number 2. The old lighthouse keeper, Silas, squinted at the churning sea. The storm, a snarling beast, lashed the rocks, spitting rain and fury. He'd seen 1,000 storms from his perch, but this one felt different. A cold dread, deeper than the ocean's depths, settled in his bones. His granddaughter, Lily, a bright-eyed girl of 10, huddled by the fire, her small hands clutching a worn doll. She hummed a tuneless song, trying to ignore the howling wind. Silas watched her, a pang of guilt twisting in his chest. He'd promised her a peaceful summer, away from the city's noise. Instead, he'd brought her to this desolate island, a place whispered to be haunted. That night, the storm reached its peak. Lightning split the sky, revealing a monstrous wave crashing against the lighthouse. A bone-chilling shriek cut through the roar of the wind. Lily jumped, her eyes wide with fear. "Grandpa," she whispered, her voice trembling. "What was that?" Silas tried to sound reassuring. "Just the wind, my dear. Go back to sleep." But he couldn't shake the feeling of unease. He'd heard those cries before, faint whispers on the wind, carried from the depths of the ocean. Old tales, the islanders called them, stories of the sea's vengeful spirits. The next morning, the storm had passed, leaving behind a landscape of devastation. The usually calm sea was littered with debris. And on the beach, something new caught Silas' eye. A large, dark object, half buried in the sand. Curiosity overcoming his apprehension, Silas approached it. He carefully brushed away the sand, revealing a wooden chest, intricately carved with strange symbols. It was old, incredibly old, the wood weathered and worn. Lily, watching from a distance, called out, "Grandpa, what is it?" Silas hesitated. He knew he shouldn't open it. The old tales spoke of cursed treasures, of things best left undisturbed. But the allure of the unknown was too strong. He pried the chest open. Inside, nestled among faded velvet, lay a tarnished silver locket. Silas picked it up. As his fingers touched the cold metal, a low moan echoed from the chest. The air grew heavy, thick with a chilling scent of brine and decay. Lily gasped. Her doll slipped from her grasp. Her eyes, wide with terror, were fixed on the locket. The locket opened, revealing a miniature portrait of a woman with haunting eyes and long, dark hair. A woman Silas recognized from the old islanders' tales, the siren of the sea, a creature said to lure sailors to their deaths with her enchanting song. Suddenly, the sea churned again, but this time, not with the fury of a storm, but with an unnatural, unsettling calm. A thick fog rolled in, engulfing the lighthouse in an eerie silence. A chilling voice, soft and seductive, echoed from the fog. "Come, come to me." The voice seemed to reach deep into their souls, tugging at their desires, their fears. Lily, mesmerized, took a step towards the fog. Silas, his heart pounding, grabbed her hand. Lily, no. He knew what the voice wanted. It wanted to claim them, to drag them down into the cold embrace of the ocean's depths. He had to fight back, he had to save his granddaughter. He closed the locket, snapping it shut with a firm click. The voice faltered, its siren song weakening. The fog began to recede. The terrifying calm of the sea was replaced with the gentle lapping of waves against the shore. But the experience had left its mark. Silas knew they could never truly escape the island's secrets. The memory of the siren's call, the chilling touch of the locket, would forever haunt their dreams. They left the island the next day, leaving behind the cursed chest and its haunting secrets. But as they sailed away, Silas saw a flash of dark hair in a wave, a fleeting glimpse of the siren's sorrowful eyes. The sea held its secrets close, waiting for its next victim. The journey home was filled with a heavy silence. Lily clung to her grandfather, her eyes reflecting the fear that still lingered. They had escaped the siren's immediate grasp, but the encounter had left an indelible mark on their souls. The old tales were no longer just stories, they were a chilling reality. The haunting melody of the siren's song played on in their minds, a constant reminder of the horrors they had witnessed, a chilling echo of the sea's vengeful spirit. The memory of the eerie calm before the storm, the unnatural quietude of the fog-laden air, served as a relentless reminder of the chilling power of the sea's dark magic. They knew, deep down, that the sea kept its secrets, and that their encounter with the siren was merely a chapter in a much larger, more terrifying saga. The ocean, once a source of wonder, was now a symbol of dread, its vastness concealing untold horrors, its depths a realm of chilling mysteries that might one day draw them back to its unforgiving embrace. Even the sight of crashing waves sent shivers down their spines, reminding them of the spectral figure lurking beneath the surface, ever watching, ever waiting. The island lighthouse, once a symbol of hope and safety, would forever stand as a haunting reminder of their brush with mortality, a grim testament to the sea's power and the chilling secrets it guards. The sea held its secrets, and Silas and Lily would carry the weight of those secrets with them for the rest of their lives. The sea's chilling embrace, felt that day, would forever shape their destinies, their lives forever haunted by the specter of the siren and her mournful song. Story 3. The humid Amazon air hung heavy as 4 American college students, Mark, Sarah, Ben, and Lisa, stepped off the small boat onto the muddy riverbank. Their professor, Dr. Evans, a seasoned Amazon explorer, led them deeper into the lush green. Excitement bubbled within them. This expedition was the culmination of years of study. The whispers of the rainforest, the songs of unseen birds, initially filled them with a sense of wonder. They marveled at the vibrant flowers, the towering trees, the myriad of insects buzzing around them. Each rustle of leaves felt like a secret whispered by the jungle itself. Days melted into weeks. Their initial excitement began to wane, replaced by a growing unease. Strange things started happening. Whispers, too faint to decipher, seemed to follow them through the dense undergrowth. The vines, thick and gnarled, seemed to writhe and shift in the periphery of their vision. They'd often find their paths mysteriously blocked, as if the jungle itself was trying to keep them out. One evening, while setting up camp, Ben wandered off. He'd been fascinated by the luminescent fungi growing on the base of a giant kapok tree. He became separated from the others, drawn deeper into the forest by the eerie glow. Hours later, when he didn't return, panic seized the remaining group. They searched frantically, calling his name until their voices were hoarse. The jungle, once a place of wonder, now felt menacing, a suffocating labyrinth of shadows and whispers. Lisa, always the cautious one, found an odd marking on a tree, a series of symbols carved into the bark, unlike anything she'd ever seen. They resembled ancient glyphs, their meaning lost to time. Dr. Evans, his usual calm demeanor replaced by a stark fear, warned them to stay together, his voice hushed with an unspoken dread. He spoke of local legends, of spirits dwelling in the heart of the Amazon, guarding its secrets. Mark, the most skeptical of the group, dismissed Dr. Evans's concerns as folklore. But even his confidence faltered as the nights grew colder, the whispers louder, the vines more menacing. Sarah, usually bubbly and cheerful, became withdrawn and fearful. Her eyes held a haunted look, reflecting the shadows of the jungle's secrets. The next morning, they found Ben's backpack, abandoned near a particularly dense thicket. It was empty except for a single, withered flower, its petals a sickly yellow. The scent was nauseating, clinging to them like a shroud. A primal fear gripped them, a deep-seated sense of dread that went beyond the normal anxieties of being lost in the wilderness. That night, a blood-curdling scream pierced the silence. It was Sarah. Mark, Lisa, and Dr. Evans raced towards the sound, their hearts pounding in their chests. They found Sarah staring wide-eyed into the darkness, pointing a trembling finger. Emerging from the shadows was a figure, tall, gaunt, its skin the color of decaying leaves. Its eyes glowed with an unnatural light, and its long, skeletal fingers reached out, as if to grasp her soul. A guttural sound, somewhere between a hiss and a growl, emanated from its throat. Terror paralyzed them for a moment. Then, Mark, fueled by adrenaline, grabbed a machete and lunged at the creature. It moved with terrifying speed, dodging his blow. The fight was desperate, a chaotic struggle in the darkness. Lisa and Dr. Evans used whatever they could find, branches, rocks, to fend off the creature. It seemed impervious to their attacks, its movements fluid and unnatural. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the creature retreated back into the darkness, disappearing as swiftly as it had appeared. They found Sarah unconscious, her eyes still wide with terror. The experience had broken something in her, leaving her deeply traumatized. They escaped the jungle, their bodies bruised and scratched, their minds scarred far deeper. The experience shattered their initial notions of adventure, leaving them with a profound sense of dread. The whispers of the Amazon would forever echo in their ears, a haunting reminder of the terrifying entity they had encountered, a creature born of the jungle's deepest, darkest secrets. The Amazon, once a place of wonder and mystery, had transformed into a symbol of primal horror, its beauty forever tainted by the shadow of that night. The lingering scent of the withered yellow flower was a physical reminder of their ordeal, a constant whisper of a nightmare they could never fully escape. The vibrant colors of the jungle were now forever overshadowed by a chilling darkness, the chilling reality of their encounter a constant reminder of their brush with true horror. Story 4. The humid Amazon air hung heavy as 4 American college students, Mark, Sarah, Ben, and Lisa, stepped off the small boat onto the muddy riverbank. Their professor, Dr. Evans, a seasoned Amazon explorer, led them deeper into the lush green. Excitement bubbled within them. This expedition was the culmination of years of study. The whispers of the rainforest, the songs of unseen birds, initially filled them with a sense of wonder. They marveled at the vibrant flowers, the towering trees, the myriad of insects buzzing around them. Each rustle of leaves felt like a secret whispered by the jungle itself. Days melted into weeks. Their initial excitement began to wane, replaced by a growing unease. Strange things started happening. Whispers, too faint to decipher, seemed to follow them through the dense undergrowth. The vines, thick and gnarled, seemed to writhe and shift in the periphery of their vision. They'd often find their paths mysteriously blocked, as if the jungle itself was trying to keep them out. One evening, while setting up camp, Ben wandered off. He'd been fascinated by the luminescent fungi growing on the base of a giant kapok tree. He became separated from the others, drawn deeper into the forest by the eerie glow. Hours later, when he didn't return, panic seized the remaining group. They searched frantically, calling his name until their voices were hoarse. The jungle, once a place of wonder, now felt menacing, a suffocating labyrinth of shadows and whispers. Lisa, always the cautious one, found an odd marking on a tree, a series of symbols carved into the bark, unlike anything she'd ever seen. They resembled ancient glyphs, their meaning lost to time. Dr. Evans, his usual calm demeanor replaced by a stark fear, warned them to stay together, his voice hushed with an unspoken dread. He spoke of local legends, of spirits dwelling in the heart of the Amazon, guarding its secrets. Mark, the most skeptical of the group, dismissed Dr. Evans's concerns as folklore. But even his confidence faltered as the nights grew colder, the whispers louder, the vines more menacing. Sarah, usually bubbly and cheerful, became withdrawn and fearful. Her eyes held a haunted look, reflecting the shadows of the jungle's secrets. The next morning, they found Ben's backpack, abandoned near a particularly dense thicket. It was empty except for a single, withered flower, its petals a sickly yellow. The scent was nauseating, clinging to them like a shroud. A primal fear gripped them, a deep-seated sense of dread that went beyond the normal anxieties of being lost in the wilderness. That night, a blood-curdling scream pierced the silence. It was Sarah. Mark, Lisa, and Dr. Evans raced towards the sound, their hearts pounding in their chests. They found Sarah staring wide-eyed into the darkness, pointing a trembling finger. Emerging from the shadows was a figure, tall, gaunt, its skin the color of decaying leaves. Its eyes glowed with an unnatural light, and its long, skeletal fingers reached out, as if to grasp her soul. A guttural sound, somewhere between a hiss and a growl, emanated from its throat. Terror paralyzed them for a moment. Then, Mark, fueled by adrenaline, grabbed a machete and lunged at the creature. It moved with terrifying speed, dodging his blow. The fight was desperate, a chaotic struggle in the darkness. Lisa and Dr. Evans used whatever they could find, branches, rocks, to fend off the creature. It seemed impervious to their attacks, its movements fluid and unnatural. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the creature retreated back into the darkness, disappearing as swiftly as it had appeared. They found Sarah unconscious, her eyes still wide with terror. The experience had broken something in her, leaving her deeply traumatized. They escaped the jungle, their bodies bruised and scratched, their minds scarred far deeper. The experience shattered their initial notions of adventure, leaving them with a profound sense of dread. The whispers of the Amazon would forever echo in their ears, a haunting reminder of the terrifying entity they had encountered, a creature born of the jungle's deepest, darkest secrets. The Amazon, once a place of wonder and mystery, had transformed into a symbol of primal horror, its beauty forever tainted by the shadow of that night. The lingering scent of the withered yellow flower was a physical reminder of their ordeal, a constant whisper of a nightmare they could never fully escape. The vibrant colors of the jungle were now forever overshadowed by a chilling darkness, the chilling reality of their encounter a constant reminder of their brush with true horror. Story 5. The hum of the conveyor belt was Sarah's constant companion. She'd worked at the Amazon warehouse for 2 years, the endless stream of boxes a monotonous rhythm in her life. But tonight, something was different. Amongst the usual array of electronics and clothing, a package stood out. It was unremarkably sized, wrapped in plain brown paper, but it radiated a chilling aura. A cold dread seeped into Sarah's bones, a feeling that had nothing to do with the warehouse's perpetually frigid temperature. Curiosity overcoming her fear, Sarah picked up the package. It was surprisingly heavy for its size. There was no return address, no shipping label, just the plain brown paper, faintly shimmering under the fluorescent lights. Mark, her co-worker, a tall man with a perpetually weary look, noticed her studying the box. "Whatcha got there, Sarah?" he asked, his voice echoing in the cavernous warehouse. "I don't know," Sarah replied, her voice barely a whisper. "It's weird." She showed him the package. Mark frowned. He ran his fingers over the rough paper, his eyes widening slightly. "No sender. No label. That's unusual, even for Amazon." They took the package to the break room. The room was nearly empty, the night shift winding down. Mark found a box cutter and carefully slit open the brown paper. Inside, nestled in crumpled newspaper, was a small wooden box. The wood was dark, almost black, and felt strangely cold to the touch. The box was intricately carved with symbols that neither Sarah nor Mark recognized. As they examined the box, a low hum filled the break room. The lights flickered, plunging the room into momentary darkness before sputtering back on. A chill wind seemed to blow through the room, despite the sealed windows and doors. Mark shivered. "This is getting creepy," he muttered. They cautiously opened the wooden box. Inside lay a single, tarnished silver locket. It was intricately designed, depicting a snarling wolf's head, its eyes seeming to glow faintly in the dim light. As Sarah picked up the locket, a whisper brushed against her ear. It was a chilling sound, barely audible, yet filled with an ancient, malevolent energy. The whispers grew louder, echoing through the warehouse. The air crackled with an unseen energy, and the temperature plummeted. Shadows danced in the corners of the room, twisting and morphing into grotesque shapes. The warehouse's usual hum was replaced by a cacophony of unsettling sounds, scratching, scraping, and the low growl of something unseen. Fear gripped Sarah and Mark. They scrambled to their feet, their hearts pounding in their chests. They tried the door, but it was jammed shut. The warehouse felt different now, alive with a malevolent presence. They were trapped. The whispers intensified, becoming a chorus of voices, all chanting in an unknown language. The shadows solidified, coalescing into a towering, shadowy figure that seemed to writhe and shift before their eyes. Its eyes burned with an infernal light, and its breath reeked of decay and death. The entity lunged, its shadowy claws reaching for them. Mark grabbed a heavy metal pipe from a nearby workbench and swung it at the creature, but the pipe passed right through it, as if it were nothing more than a phantom. The entity laughed a sound that echoed the emptiness of the void. Desperate, Sarah remembered a small crucifix she had tucked into her pocket. She clutched it tightly, feeling a surge of unexpected strength. As the creature lunged again, she held the crucifix aloft. The entity recoiled, letting out a piercing scream, its form flickering and dissolving as it retreated into the shadows. The whispers faded, the shadows dissipated, and the unsettling temperature returned to normal. The warehouse was silent once again, the only sound the rhythmic hum of the conveyor belt. They stumbled out of the break room, leaving the locket and the wooden box behind. The experience had shaken them to their core, the memory of the creature's chilling presence seared into their minds. They never spoke of it again, the horrors of that night locked away in the silent chambers of their hearts. The chilling package remained a mystery, a whispered legend in the annals of the Amazon warehouse. The unsettling memory lingered long after the incident. The hum of the conveyor belt now carried a different, more sinister, tone. Both Sarah and Mark left Amazon shortly after the incident, choosing lives far removed from the place that nearly cost them their sanity. They tried to forget what happened, but they knew, in their hearts, the horrifying experience of that night would forever haunt them. Story number 6. Title: The Secrets of the Amazon. In a small town in America, there were whispers of a dark legend hidden in the depths of the Amazon rainforest. This legend drew the attention of 4 adventurous friends, Mia, Jake, Lila, and Tom. They were explorers at heart, eager to trek into the wild to uncover its mysteries. One hot summer day, they packed their bags with camping gear, food, and maps. They knew the trip would be full of surprises, but they were excited. They flew to Brazil, feeling the thrill of adventure. Once they arrived, they hired a guide named Raphael, a local who knew the jungle well. He warned them about the dangers that lurked within, but they shrugged it off, eager to start their journey. The group set off into the thick trees, the sunlight filtering through the tall canopies above. They walked for hours, surrounded by the sounds of chirping birds and rustling leaves. It felt magical, but Raphael's words echoed in their minds. They knew they should be cautious. As night fell, they set up camp beside a river. The water sparkled in the silver moonlight, and the friends felt safe. They laughed and shared stories around the fire. But soon, a feeling of unease settled in. Mia noticed shadows moving among the trees, but when she pointed them out, Tom laughed it off, saying it was just the wind. The next day, they continued their journey deeper into the forest. The trees grew thicker, and the air became more humid. They stumbled upon a small village, its huts made of mud and leaves. The villagers were wary but friendly. They offered the friends fruits and water, but one old woman, with deep-set eyes and a crooked smile, warned them. "You should not go further," she said. "The forest holds dark secrets. Many have entered, but few have returned." The friends exchanged nervous glances but were too curious to turn back. They thanked the villagers and pressed on, eager to find the heart of the jungle. That evening, as they set up camp again, a heavy fog rolled in. It swallowed everything around them, and their fire flickered weakly. Suddenly, they heard whispers, low and haunting, echoing through the trees. The words were in a language they didn't understand, but the tone was clear. It was a warning. "What is that?" Lila asked, her voice trembling. "It must be the wind," Jake suggested, trying to sound brave, but he too felt a chill run down his spine. Still, they were determined to move forward. They climbed higher up the hills, where the trees thinned and the air was crisper. They found a clearing that opened up to a beautiful waterfall cascading into a crystal-clear pool. It was breathtaking, and they decided to rest there. As they splashed in the water, the feeling of tension faded, replaced by laughter and fun. But as night fell again, the whispers returned, louder this time and more insistent. They tried to ignore it but struggled to sleep. In the morning, they woke to a shocking sight. Tom was missing. Panic gripped the group as they called his name, but only the echoes of their voices replied. They searched the area frantically, retracing their steps, hoping to find him. But there was no sign of Tom. Feeling defeated, they returned to their campsite. That was when they noticed strange markings on the trees, symbols they didn't recognize. Raphael looked worried as he studied them. "These are warnings," he said. "This is a sacred place. We should leave before it's too late." But they couldn't just leave Tom behind. They decided to search for him one more time, even though dread hung over them. They split up into pairs, Mia and Jake, and Lila and Raphael. As Mia and Jake wandered deeper into the forest, they stumbled upon an old, crumbling temple covered in vines. The stone appeared ancient, almost alive with history. They felt drawn to it, despite the growing sense of dread. Inside, the air turned thick, and an eerie silence wrapped around them. Suddenly, they heard a familiar voice. "Help! Help me!" It was Tom. They raced toward the sound, their hearts pounding. As they approached, they saw him sitting on the ground, staring into darkness. His eyes were wide with fear. "Tom!" Mia cried, rushing to him. But as she reached out, a shadow flickered in the corner of her eye. She turned, seeing twisted figures emerging from the darkness. They were once human but now looked like ghastly spirits, their faces twisted with anguish. "Run!" Jake shouted, grabbing Mia's arm. They pulled Tom to his feet and all three sprinted out of the temple, the wailing spirits chasing them. The whispers grew louder, a deafening chorus of warning and sorrow. They made their way back to the camp, where Lila and Raphael were waiting. But something was wrong. Raphael was pale, eyes darting around in panic. "We need to leave now," he urged, but no one understood why. They had barely escaped the temple and didn't want to leave without knowing what was going on. They quickly gathered their things, but as they prepared to move, the ground shook. The shadows returned, swirling around them, forming into monstrous shapes. The friends huddled together, terrified. "Tell them we're sorry," Mia screamed, realizing too late that they had disturbed something powerful and ancient. The whispers grew in strength, mixed with the sound of beating wings. The shadows lunged, and one by one, the friends began to disappear into darkness. In the end, only echoes remained in the forest, along with whispered warnings. The jungle reclaimed its secrets, hiding the stories of the four adventurers who dared to explore too deep. The villagers would tell tales of the friends who went missing, reminding others that some places should be left undisturbed, for the forest was alive, and it guarded its secrets tightly. Subscribe to Hollow Whisper Tales and unlock the secrets of the night. Some doors should never be opened. Some stories should never be told. But once you start listening, you can never unhear the whispers. Story 7. Title: Whispers from the Past. Introduction. Sarah Bennett stood at the edge of the gravel driveway, her heart racing as she gazed at the old Victorian house that loomed before her. It was a structure steeped in history, its once vibrant paint now faded and peeling, the shutters hanging askew like tired eyelids. Vines snaked up the walls, intertwining with the rotting wood, as if nature itself was attempting to reclaim the home. It had been nearly 6 months since her grandmother's passing, and Sarah was finally ready to face the legacy left behind. This house had been a constant in her childhood, a place filled with warmth and laughter during summer visits, yet it was also the site of many whispered stories that haunted her family. Sarah had heard them as a child, tales of shadows that danced in the corners, doors that creaked open by themselves, and whispers that drifted through the halls when the wind was still. Most of her relatives dismissed these stories as mere exaggerations of old age or the figments of a child's imagination, but Sarah could never shake the feeling that there was something more to them. Stepping closer, Sarah's senses heightened. The scent of damp wood and aged fabric enveloped her, and a shiver crawled up her spine as she reached for the doorknob. It felt cold and heavy in her hand, as if it had absorbed the weight of the years. With a deep breath, she twisted the knob and pushed the door open. It creaked in protest, echoing her unease as she crossed the threshold into her family's past. The interior was dimly lit, with slivers of sunlight cutting through the grime on the windows, illuminating dust particles that danced in the air. Sarah's eyes traveled over the faded wallpaper, adorned with a floral pattern that had once been vibrant but now looked lifeless and worn. Each step deeper into the house brought a sense of nostalgia mixed with apprehension. Memories flooded her mind, her grandmother's laughter, the aroma of fresh-baked cookies wafting from the kitchen, and the warmth of hugs that seemed to linger long after they ended. As she moved through the rooms, Sarah began to notice the remnants of her grandmother's life. In the living room, the overstuffed armchair sat in its usual corner, its upholstery threadbare but still bearing the imprint of countless hours spent reading. The grand piano, an antique piece that had been in the family for generations, stood silent in the corner, its keys waiting to be touched once more. She could almost hear her grandmother playing softly, filling the air with melodies that soothed her troubled mind. But alongside these cherished memories, there was an undercurrent of unease that prickled at the back of Sarah's mind. The house felt different now, more like a stranger than a friend. As the sun began to set, shadows crept across the floors, and an unsettling silence settled in, broken only by the occasional creak of the house shifting as if it were waking from a long slumber. Determined to uncover the secrets hidden within the walls, Sarah set to work unpacking boxes filled with her grandmother's belongings. Each item held a story, a connection to the past that Sarah felt compelled to explore. Among the clutter, she found old photographs, some faded and yellowed with age, depicting her family through the decades. She smiled at a picture of her grandmother as a young woman, her eyes sparkling with life, but her heart sank when she stumbled upon a photograph that made her skin crawl. It was a black and white image of the house taken decades ago. The porch, once adorned with cheerful flowers, looked desolate. A thin fog enveloped the property, giving it an ethereal quality that felt eerily alive. The unsettling part was the figure standing on the porch, a woman with long, dark hair cascading down her back, her face obscured by shadows. Sarah squinted, trying to make out the features, but the image was too unclear. A chill ran through her as she realized the figure bore an uncanny resemblance to her grandmother. Feeling a knot tighten in her stomach, Sarah placed the photograph down and glanced around the room. It was as if the walls were closing in, whispering secrets just out of reach. She shook her head, trying to dismiss the unease that had taken root in her mind. It was just an old house, she told herself. Just an old house with memories to uncover. As night fell, Sarah decided to explore the upstairs rooms. The staircase creaked beneath her weight, and the air grew colder as she ascended. She opened the door to what had once been her grandmother's bedroom. The room was filled with relics of the past, a large four-poster bed, a vintage dresser, and a trunk overflowing with clothes from another era. But what caught her attention was a small, ornate mirror hanging on the wall. The mirror's surface was clouded with age, yet as she approached, she felt an inexplicable pull. Leaning closer, she wiped away the grime with her sleeve, revealing a reflection that seemed to shimmer with a life of its own. For a moment, Sarah thought she saw movement behind her, a fleeting shadow slipping away. She turned, heart pounding, but found only the stillness of the empty room. "Get a grip, Sarah," she muttered to herself, feeling foolish. But deep down, a primal fear had begun to take hold. This house, once a sanctuary, now felt like a trap, an entity with secrets it wasn't ready to reveal. As she climbed into bed that night, the weight of the house pressed down on her, and sleep came reluctantly, filled with dreams of whispers echoing through the corridors, beckoning her deeper into the shadows of her family's history. 2. Arrival at the house. As Sarah stepped further into the dimly lit foyer, the door creaked closed behind her with an ominous thud. The silence that enveloped her was thick, as though the walls themselves were holding their breath. She paused, taking a moment to absorb the surroundings, her heart thudding in her chest. Dust motes floated lazily in the shafts of light streaming through the grimy windows, creating an otherworldly atmosphere that made her feel both welcome and uneasy. With determination, Sarah brushed aside the unease that settled in her stomach. She had always loved this house, even when it was nothing more than a backdrop to her childhood memories. Each creaky floorboard, each worn-out doorknob, was a reminder of family gatherings, laughter, and the stories shared around the dinner table. But now, as the new owner, she was aware of the weight of responsibility that came with the inheritance. Sarah stepped into the living room, her eyes adjusting to the dim light. The space was filled with heavy, antique furniture that seemed to hold secrets of its own. The fireplace, though cold and empty, was adorned with family photos in ornate frames, some of which she recognized and others that were unfamiliar. She walked over to the mantel, running her fingers gently along the surfaces, dust collecting in the creases of her hands. One photograph caught her eye, a picture of her grandmother, younger and vibrant, sitting on the very same couch that now seemed so faded and worn. Her grandmother's bright smile stood in stark contrast to the somber hues of the room, a testament to the happiness that had once filled this space. Sarah felt a pang of nostalgia, longing for the warmth of her grandmother's presence. The memory was bittersweet, a reminder of the love and guidance she had lost. As she turned to explore further, she noticed an old phonograph in the corner. Its brass horn glinted in the muted light, and she couldn't resist the urge to approach it. With a cautious hand, she brushed off layers of dust and pressed a finger against the needle, which looked as if it hadn't been used in years. Sarah smiled at the thought of her grandmother dancing in the living room to the soft melodies that once filled the air. She could almost hear the music echoing through the hallways. But as she stood there, a chill crept through the room, causing her to shiver. It was a sudden drop in temperature, as if a shadow had passed through her. Sarah shook her head, attributing the sensation to the drafty old house. With a determined breath, she moved on, venturing into the kitchen, where the scent of aged wood and forgotten meals lingered. The kitchen was a blend of nostalgia and neglect, with faded curtains hanging limply in the windows and an old farmhouse table at its center. Sunlight streamed through the glass, illuminating dust particles that danced lazily in the air. As Sarah examined the countertops, she spotted a small cookbook, its spine cracked and pages yellowed. She opened it, the musty smell wafting up, and smiled at the handwritten notes in the margins, her grandmother's recipes, filled with love and little tips for success. Lost in memories, Sarah nearly jumped when she heard a faint rustling sound from the corner of the room. She turned abruptly, her heart racing, but found nothing out of the ordinary. Just the shadows playing tricks on her mind, she assured herself. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Dismissing the thought, she decided it was time to explore the upstairs rooms. As she ascended the staircase, the wooden steps creaked beneath her weight, each sound echoing through the stillness. Sarah glanced up at the landing, where a flickering light bulb cast an eerie glow. The wallpaper, once a cheerful floral print, was peeling in places, revealing the faded memories trapped beneath. As she reached the top of the stairs, she felt a sense of trepidation wash over her. The hallway was long and dimly lit, with doors lining either side. She hesitated at the first door, her hand hovering above the knob. It was the room her grandmother had occupied, and she couldn't help but feel a sense of reverence as she pushed it open. The bedroom was a time capsule, frozen in the past. The large four-poster bed was draped with an intricately woven quilt, its colors muted but still beautiful. An old dresser stood against one wall, adorned with trinkets that sparkled in the low light. As she stepped inside, Sarah felt a rush of emotions. The room was filled with the essence of her grandmother. She could almost hear her gentle voice, guiding her through the trials of life. But alongside that warmth was an inexplicable heaviness that pressed down on her chest. The air felt charged, as if the walls themselves were whispering secrets. Feeling compelled to uncover more, Sarah opened the closet doors, revealing a collection of vintage clothing, each piece a relic of a different time. As she sifted through the garments, her fingers brushed against something cool and metallic. Pulling it out, she found a small locket, tarnished with age. Curiosity piqued, she opened it to reveal a faded photograph of a woman she did not recognize. The woman's eyes seemed to follow her, a knowing gaze that sent a shiver down her spine. "What secrets do you hold?" Sarah whispered to the locket, her voice barely above a breath. Just then, she heard a soft creaking sound from the hallway, and her heart raced. It felt as if something or someone was standing just beyond the door, waiting for her to make a choice. Despite her racing heart, Sarah knew she couldn't back down. This house was her heritage, filled with stories waiting to be uncovered. She felt an unexplainable connection to it, a pull that urged her to delve deeper into its mysteries. Steeling herself, she took a deep breath and stepped back into the hallway, ready to face whatever awaited her in the shadows of her family's past. With each room she explored, Sarah felt a mix of anticipation and dread. It was as if the house was alive, breathing with the memories and spirits of those who had come before her. And with every creak of the floorboards and flicker of the lights, she couldn't shake the feeling that the house was ready to share its secrets if only she was brave enough to listen. 3. Researching the house's history. The next morning, Sarah awoke to a hazy light filtering through the curtains, casting a soft glow over the room. Though she had tried to dismiss her unease, she couldn't shake the feeling that the house was hiding something, a dark secret that lingered just beyond her reach. Determined to uncover the truth, she decided to visit the local library, hoping to find records that would shed light on her family's history and the stories that surrounded the old house. After a quick breakfast, Sarah made her way into town. The library was housed in a quaint brick building, its tall windows framed by flowering vines. As she stepped inside, the musty smell of old books enveloped her, comforting in its familiarity. She approached the front desk, where a kind elderly librarian greeted her with a warm smile. "Hello, dear. How can I help you today?" the librarian asked, her eyes twinkling with curiosity. "I'm looking for information on my grandmother's house," Sarah replied, her voice steady despite the fluttering in her stomach. "I just inherited it, and I'd like to know more about its history." The librarian's expression shifted, a glimmer of recognition crossing her face. "Ah, the Bennett house. That place has quite the reputation around here. Many stories, both lovely and unsettling. You might want to start in the local history section." Following the librarian's directions, Sarah found herself surrounded by rows of dusty books and yellowed newspapers. She settled at a wooden table, spreading out old newspaper clippings and photographs that chronicled the town's history. Her heart raced as she scanned the headlines, each one revealing glimpses of the past, the triumphs and tragedies that had shaped her family and the home she now owned. The first article she found was dated back to the early 1900s and detailed the construction of the Bennett house. The piece described it as a beautiful Victorian structure, built by her great-grandfather, a prominent businessman in the area. The house had been the center of social gatherings, filled with laughter and music. It seemed like a perfect reflection of the family's status and success. However, as Sarah continued to read, the tone shifted. Another article recounted a tragic event, the sudden death of her great-grandmother, who had been found lifeless in the garden, her death ruled an accident. The article was filled with speculation, suggesting foul play and hinting at the turmoil within the family. Sarah's heart sank as she read the words. She had always known her family had its share of difficulties, but this was the first time she had come across such a dark chapter. Determined to find more answers, she continued her research. Over the next few hours, she uncovered a series of unsettling stories about the house and its occupants. A local historian had documented various ghost sightings reported by neighbors over the years, unexplained noises, shadows flickering in the windows, and even sightings of a woman in white wandering through the garden at night. Each tale seemed to echo the whispers she had heard the night before, deepening her sense of unease. Frustrated yet intrigued, Sarah decided to take a break and gather her thoughts. She wandered over to a nearby shelf filled with old photographs. As she flipped through the faded images, one photograph caught her attention. It depicted a family gathering on the porch of the Bennett house, her grandmother seated proudly among the guests. But what struck Sarah was the woman standing behind her grandmother, a shadowy figure with long dark hair and a sorrowful expression. A chill ran down her spine as she realized the woman bore a striking resemblance to her grandmother. "Can I help you find something?" a voice broke through her thoughts. Sarah turned to see a man in his 60s standing beside her, his grey hair tousled and his eyes bright with interest. "I'm just looking for more information about my family's history," Sarah replied, holding the photograph in her hands. "This is my grandmother's house." The man studied the picture for a moment, his brow furrowing in recognition. "You must be Sarah Bennett. I'm Mr. Thompson, the local historian. Your family's story is quite fascinating, but it also carries its share of sorrow. Would you like to hear more about it? Nodding eagerly, Sarah felt a wave of relief wash over her. Mr. Thompson led her to a quiet corner of the library, where they could discuss the house without interruptions. He recounted tales of the Bennett family, highlighting both their achievements and their tragedies. Your great-grandmother was known for her kindness and generosity, he began. But after her death, the family fell apart. There were rumors of disagreements over money and property, and the house was often left empty for long periods. The neighbors would talk about strange happenings, doors opening and closing on their own, lights flickering at odd hours. Many believed the spirits of the Bennett family never truly left. Sarah listened intently, her heart heavy with the weight of her family's history. "Do you think the house is haunted?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Mr. Thompson leaned back, his expression thoughtful. "I wouldn't call it haunted in the traditional sense, but the energy in that house is palpable. It holds memories, both joyful and tragic. If you're willing to listen, it may reveal its secrets to you." Sarah pondered his words as she gazed out the window at the quiet street. The town had changed so much over the years, but she felt a deep connection to her roots, to the legacy that had been passed down through generations. The house was not just a structure, it was a testament to her family's struggles, their joys, and their losses. "Thank you, Mr. Thompson," she said, her voice steady. "I want to learn everything I can about my family and the house. I owe it to them." After exchanging contact information, Sarah left the library, her mind racing with thoughts. She had uncovered a tapestry of stories, each thread interwoven with her family's past. But beneath the surface lay a mystery that demanded to be unraveled. Back at the house, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. The whispers that had haunted her were now a call to action. As she settled in for the night, she resolved to dig deeper, to confront the shadows of her family's history and to bring light to the darkness that had lingered for far too long. It was time to listen to the house, to discover what it had to say. 4. Strange experiences intensify. As days turned into weeks, Sarah settled into her new routine in the old Victorian house. Each morning, she would spend hours researching her family's history, poring over documents, photos, and newspaper clippings. She felt a growing sense of connection to her ancestors, as if their stories were intertwining with her own. But alongside this connection, a strange tension brewed in the house. It began subtly, an occasional creak of the floorboards when she was certain she was alone, or a soft whisper that echoed through the hallways. At first, she dismissed these occurrences as figments of her imagination, remnants of a mind steeped in family lore and ghostly tales. Yet, as time went on, the experiences grew more intense and impossible to ignore. One evening, while sitting in the living room, Sarah felt a sudden chill wash over her. The air turned electric, causing the hairs on her arms to stand on end. She looked up, her eyes darting to the antique mirror hanging on the wall, its surface catching the last rays of sunlight. In that moment, she could have sworn she saw a figure reflected in the glass, a woman standing just behind her, dressed in a long white gown, her face obscured by shadows. Heart racing, Sarah turned quickly, but the room was empty. "Get a grip, Sarah," she whispered to herself, willing the fear to subside. It was just her imagination, she reassured herself. But as she tried to shake off the chill, a soft sound echoed through the room like a gentle sigh. Sarah froze, her breath hitching in her throat. It was as if the house were alive, responding to her doubts and fears. Over the following days, the strange occurrences became more frequent and increasingly unsettling. One night, as she was about to drift off to sleep, she heard a distinct thud coming from downstairs. It sounded like something had fallen, breaking the stillness of the night. Heart pounding, Sarah climbed out of bed and tiptoed down the staircase, the wood creaking beneath her feet. When she reached the living room, her breath caught in her throat. The old phonograph, which she had left untouched, was now spinning slowly, its needle scratching against the record. She stared in disbelief, the eerie melody filling the room, wrapping around her like a shroud. As she approached, the music abruptly stopped, leaving an unsettling silence in its wake. "Hello," she called out, her voice quavering. The house responded with silence, but Sarah could feel an undeniable presence in the air, thick with anticipation. She swallowed hard and glanced around the room, searching for any signs of life. Nothing. Determined to confront whatever was haunting her, Sarah decided to conduct an experiment. She gathered a few friends, hoping to dispel the darkness that had begun to permeate her thoughts. That weekend, she invited Emma and Jason, two childhood friends who had spent many summers with her at the Bennett house. They arrived with laughter and light, their presence a welcome distraction from the unease that had settled within her. "Are you sure you want us here?" Emma asked, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "I've heard the stories about this place. Are we in for a scare?" Sarah chuckled, trying to hide her apprehension. "It's just an old house. You'll love it. Besides, I could use the company." As night fell, they gathered in the living room, armed with snacks and flashlights. The atmosphere shifted as darkness enveloped the house, shadows stretching and flickering against the walls. Sarah tried to shake off her unease, but the weight of the house's history pressed down on her. "Let's tell ghost stories," Jason suggested, his voice a mix of excitement and mischief. "This place is perfect for it." They settled in a circle on the floor, the flickering candlelight casting eerie shadows. One by one, they shared tales of the supernatural, their laughter echoing through the room. But as the stories grew darker, Sarah felt a knot tighten in her stomach. Each tale seemed to awaken something within the house, stirring the air around them. Suddenly, the lights flickered, plunging the room into darkness. A collective gasp filled the space as they scrambled for their flashlights, the beams of light cutting through the shadows. Just then, a loud crash echoed from the kitchen, causing Sarah's heart to race. "What was that?" Emma exclaimed, her eyes wide with fear. "Probably just the house settling," Sarah said, attempting to sound calm. But deep down, she knew it was something more. "Let's check it out together." With flashlights in hand, they made their way to the kitchen, the shadows seeming to close in around them. As they entered, the sight that greeted them sent chills down Sarah's spine. The old wooden table had been cleared of its previous clutter, and a single chair was toppled over, as if someone had pushed it aside in a hurry. "Did you guys see that?" Jason whispered, his voice trembling. "It's like something, or someone was here." "Maybe it was just a draft," Sarah offered weakly, though her heart sank at the sight. The air felt charged, electric with tension, and she couldn't shake the feeling that they were not alone. As they began to clean up the mess, Sarah noticed something glinting on the floor beneath the table. She knelt down to inspect it, revealing a small locket, identical to the one she had found in her grandmother's bedroom. Holding it up, she felt a jolt of recognition. "This belonged to my grandmother," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. "How did it get here?" Her friends exchanged uneasy glances, the atmosphere shifting palpably. "Maybe we should go back to the living room," Emma suggested, her voice shaking. As they retreated, Sarah's mind raced with questions. The locket was a connection to her family's past, but its sudden appearance felt like a warning. What did it mean? Why was the house revealing these pieces of her history now? They settled back in the living room, the laughter from earlier replaced by an uncomfortable silence. Each creak of the floorboards felt amplified, every shadow more pronounced. Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that the house was watching, waiting for her to uncover its secrets. "Let's play a game," Jason suggested, attempting to lighten the mood. "How about a round of truth or dare?" Though hesitant, Sarah agreed, hoping it would distract her from the tension in the air. The game began innocently enough, with silly dares and truths that elicited laughter. But as the game progressed, the atmosphere shifted once more. When it was Sarah's turn, she felt a compulsion to ask a question that had been nagging at her. "What do you think the house wants from me?" she blurted out, half joking. Emma paused, her expression turning serious. "Maybe it wants you to listen. Maybe it wants you to know what happened here." Just as the words left her lips, a gust of wind blew through the room, extinguishing the candles and plunging them into darkness. The flashlights flickered as panic surged through them. "What the hell?" Jason shouted, his voice rising in alarm. "Everyone stay calm," Sarah urged, though her own heart raced in her chest. The shadows seemed to swirl around them, and an unmistakable whisper filled the air, a voice, barely audible, echoing through the darkness. "Help me." The plea resonated within Sarah, deepening her resolve. The house was alive, and it was calling to her. It was time to confront the shadows and discover the truth hidden within the walls of her family's legacy. Confronting the spirits. The atmosphere in the Bennett house had shifted drastically since Sarah's friends had left. The oppressive silence enveloped her, punctuated only by the faint creaks and groans of the old structure settling into the night. After the chilling experience during their game, Sarah felt more determined than ever to confront the strange occurrences that had plagued her since her arrival. If the house held secrets, it was time to uncover them. With her heart pounding, Sarah lit a few candles in the living room, their flickering flames casting shadows on the walls. She settled down on the floor, the warmth from the candles creating a fragile barrier against the chill that permeated the air. Clutching the locket she had found, she focused her thoughts on the presence she felt in the house. She wasn't alone, she could sense it. "Is anyone here?" Sarah called out softly, her voice steady but tinged with uncertainty. The house responded with silence, but she could feel a palpable energy surrounding her, thick and electric. She closed her eyes, taking a deep breath, allowing herself to relax. The minutes stretched into what felt like hours as she sat in stillness, the shadows around her growing longer and darker. Suddenly, she felt a cool breeze sweep through the room, extinguishing a candle and plunging her into deeper darkness. Panic surged within her, but she reminded herself to breathe. "Show yourself," she commanded, her voice stronger now, echoing in the silence. "I want to understand. I want to help you." As if in response to her words, a soft whisper filled the room, a familiar voice that seemed to rise from the depths of her memory. "Help me." The plea was urgent and desperate, wrapping around her like a shroud. Sarah's heart raced. It was the same voice she had heard before, the same cry that had pierced the silence just moments ago. She felt drawn to the staircase, an inexplicable pull guiding her upward. Gathering her courage, she stood and made her way to the second floor, the floorboards creaking beneath her feet. At the top of the stairs, Sarah paused outside her grandmother's old bedroom, her heart pounding in her chest. The door stood slightly ajar, the faintest light flickering from within. As she pushed the door open, she was met with a sight that took her breath away. The room was transformed, bathed in an ethereal glow. The air shimmered with energy, and at the center stood a figure, a woman, dressed in a long, flowing white gown, her face obscured by shadows. Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she recognized her grandmother, her heart swelling with a mix of love and fear. "Grandma," she whispered, stepping forward cautiously. The figure turned, and Sarah felt an overwhelming wave of emotion wash over her. The woman's eyes were filled with sadness, but there was also a flicker of hope. "Sarah," her grandmother's voice was soft, reverberating through the air like a distant melody. "You've come to help me. What happened to you?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. "Why are you here?" Her grandmother extended a hand, the gesture inviting yet filled with sorrow. "The house holds the memories of our family, both joyous and painful. After I passed, I was trapped here, unable to move on. The weight of our history binds me. Sarah's heart ached at the revelation. But how can I help you? What do you need? I need you to remember, her grandmother said, her voice filled with urgency. There are secrets buried in the walls of this house, secrets that have haunted our family for generations. You must uncover the truth to free me and the others who linger here. Tears welled in Sarah's eyes as she processed her grandmother's words. What truth? What do you mean? The figure stepped closer, the light around her flickering. The tragedy that befell your great-grandmother, the jealousy, the betrayal. It tore our family apart. You must find the journal hidden in this house. It contains the answers you seek. Where can I find it? Sarah asked, desperation lacing her voice. Her grandmother hesitated, her form flickering like a candle in the wind. In the attic, among the old trunks. But be careful, Sarah. The darkness that binds me is powerful. It will try to keep you from uncovering the truth. Before Sarah could respond, the figure began to fade, her features blurring until they dissolved into the shadows. Remember, my dear, you are not alone. I will be with you. As her grandmother's voice faded into silence, Sarah felt a surge of determination. She had to find the journal and uncover the secrets that bound her family to this house. Steeling herself, she turned and hurried to the attic, her heart racing with anticipation and fear. The attic door creaked as she pushed it open, revealing a dimly lit space filled with dust and cobwebs. Old trunks lined the walls, their surfaces covered in layers of grime. As she stepped inside, the air felt thick with history, and Sarah could almost hear the echoes of her ancestors whispering through the rafters. She began to rummage through the trunks, her fingers brushing against forgotten treasures, old clothes, toys, and photographs. With each item she unearthed, she felt a deeper connection to her family's past. But time was of the essence, and she had to focus on her goal. After what felt like an eternity, she finally spotted a small, weathered trunk in the far corner of the attic. It looked different from the others, as if it held something significant. With bated breath, she approached and knelt before it. The lock was rusty, but with a firm tug, the lid sprang open. Inside, she found a collection of papers and a worn leather-bound journal. Her heart raced as she lifted the journal from the trunk, its cover cracked with age. As she opened it, the musty scent of old paper filled the air, and she felt a shiver run down her spine. The pages were filled with her great-grandmother's elegant handwriting, detailing the life of the family in the house, the love, the struggles, and the betrayal that had haunted them. As Sarah read, the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. The journal recounted the story of jealousy that had festered among family members, leading to betrayal and tragedy. It revealed the truth about her great-grandmother's death, shedding light on the darkness that had followed her family for generations. Each revelation sent shockwaves through Sarah, deepening her resolve. I will set you free, she vowed aloud, clutching the journal tightly. With the truth finally in her grasp, Sarah felt a sense of empowerment. The spirits bound to this house needed her to confront the darkness and honor their legacy. With renewed determination, she made her way back downstairs, ready to face the spirits and bring closure to the past. The air felt charged with energy, and as she entered the living room, she could sense the presence of her ancestors gathered around her, watching with anticipation. Your time has come, she said, her voice strong and resolute. I will share your stories. I will remember. As the candlelight flickered, Sarah prepared to confront the spirits of her family and guide them toward the peace they had long sought. With the journal in hand, she knew she had the power to change the course of her family's history, to release them from the shackles of their past. Unraveling the mystery. With the journal clutched tightly in her hands, Sarah felt a sense of urgency coursing through her veins. The secrets of her family's past lay before her, woven into the delicate script of her great-grandmother's handwriting. She knew that unveiling these truths was essential not only for her peace of mind but also for the spirits that lingered within the walls of the Bennett house. The air felt heavy with anticipation as she settled into the living room, the flickering candlelight casting dancing shadows on the walls. She opened the journal once more, the pages whispering stories of love, loss, and betrayal that had long been buried beneath layers of silence. The first few entries painted a vivid picture of her great-grandmother's life. She had been a woman of remarkable strength, navigating the challenges of motherhood and societal expectations with grace. But as Sarah delved deeper, the tone shifted dramatically. The entries became darker, filled with anguish and despair. It seemed that her great-grandmother had been deeply in love with her husband, but their relationship had been marred by the jealousy of others. Sarah read about a close family friend who had harbored unspoken feelings for her great-grandmother, feelings that had festered and turned toxic. This friend had become a source of strife within the family, sowing seeds of discord that ultimately led to tragedy. Betrayal is a bitter poison, one passage read. It seeps into the heart and mind, twisting love into something unrecognizable. I fear for my family, the darkness is closing in. As Sarah continued to read, she uncovered the shocking revelation that her great-grandmother's death was not an accident, as everyone had been led to believe. In her final entries, she wrote of her growing fears, sensing that someone was watching her, waiting for an opportunity to strike. The last entry was a frantic scrawl, detailing the night of her death. She had sensed danger, feeling a presence lurking just beyond her door. "They want to silence me," the entry concluded, the ink smeared as if written in haste. "I must protect my children. If you find this, know that I love you and that the truth will be revealed." Tears streamed down Sarah's cheeks as the weight of her great-grandmother's pain settled upon her. This was more than just a family story, it was a cry for help, a call to action that transcended generations. The betrayal that had torn her family apart had its roots in jealousy, and now it was time to confront that darkness. Determined to honor her great-grandmother's memory, Sarah felt a surge of bravery. She understood that she needed to gather her friends again, to share the truth, to seek their support, and to confront the lingering spirits that had haunted her family for so long. That evening, she reached out to Emma and Jason, explaining the situation as best as she could. "I need you to come back. There's something important I have to share with you." Within hours, they arrived, their expressions a mix of concern and curiosity. Sarah led them to the living room, her heart pounding with anticipation. "I've uncovered some truths about my family," she began, her voice steady. "And I think it's time we confront whatever is still lingering here." Emma and Jason exchanged glances, the weight of Sarah's words settling over them. "What do you mean?" Jason asked, his brow furrowed. Taking a deep breath, Sarah opened the journal, sharing the passages that had struck her the most. As she recounted her great-grandmother's story, she could see the emotions playing across her friends' faces: shock, sadness, and a growing determination to help. "This house holds more than memories, it holds the truth of what happened to my great-grandmother. She was betrayed, and I believe her spirit is still here, seeking justice." The atmosphere in the room shifted, and the air felt charged with energy. "What do we do?" Emma asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "We need to honor her memory," Sarah replied, her conviction solidifying. "We need to call on the spirits of our family to confront the darkness that has plagued us for too long. We have to free them." As night fell and the shadows deepened, Sarah gathered candles and placed them in a circle on the living room floor. She lit each one carefully, feeling the warmth spread throughout the room. Emma and Jason joined her, their expressions serious but supportive. With the candles flickering, Sarah centered herself, closing her eyes and focusing on the energy within the space. "If there are spirits here, I invite you to join us. We seek the truth and wish to honor your memories. We want to help you find peace." The room fell silent, the only sound the soft crackle of the flames. As Sarah sat in the center of the circle, she felt a sudden chill envelop her, the temperature dropping dramatically. She opened her eyes, and in the flickering candlelight, she saw a figure manifesting before her. It was the silhouette of a woman, ethereal and shimmering, her face obscured yet familiar. "You have come to listen," the voice echoed, a mix of sorrow and relief. "You seek the truth." Sarah's heart raced as she nodded, the air thick with emotion. "Yes. We want to understand what happened. We want to help you find peace." The figure moved closer, and Sarah could feel the energy intensifying. "The darkness that binds me is rooted in betrayal," the spirit said, her voice soft yet commanding. "It has lingered for too long, affecting generations of our family." "What can we do?" Emma asked, her voice trembling with reverence. "Remember my story," the spirit urged, her presence becoming more solid. "Share it with others. Break the cycle of silence and shame. My pain must not be forgotten, nor should the love that once existed." With each word, Sarah felt a wave of understanding wash over her. "We will tell your story. We will make sure your memory lives on," she promised, her voice filled with resolve. The spirit nodded, a flicker of light radiating from her form. "Thank you, dear one. You are the key to our freedom. Remember, love is stronger than betrayal." As the spirit began to fade, Sarah felt a warmth envelop her, a sense of peace washing over the room. The oppressive weight that had lingered for so long started to lift, and the shadows seemed to recede. The candles flickered, and as the last remnants of the spirit vanished, Sarah felt a profound sense of purpose. They had unearthed the truth, and now it was their responsibility to honor it. The mysteries of her family's past were finally beginning to unravel, and with each revelation, she felt a deeper connection to the spirits who had come before her. Together, they would break the chains of betrayal, ensuring that love would triumph over darkness. And with that promise, Sarah knew she was no longer just a descendant of the Bennett family, she was a guardian of their legacy. As dawn broke over the Bennett house, a soft light filtered through the dusty windows, casting a warm glow in the once shadowy corners. Sarah, Emma, and Jason gathered in the living room, the atmosphere lighter than it had been since their arrival. They had faced the darkness together, and now it felt as if a new chapter was beginning, one filled with hope and healing. The spirits of Sarah's ancestors had shared their stories, and she was determined to honor them. She had promised to tell the tale of her great-grandmother's betrayal and the love that had been lost in the shadows of jealousy. But more than that, she wanted to bring a sense of closure to her family, and she knew that the first step was to share what they had discovered. With her friends by her side, Sarah took a deep breath and opened her laptop. "We need to write this down, share it with others," she said, her fingers hovering above the keyboard. "This is our family's story, and it deserves to be heard." As she began typing, the words flowed from her heart, recounting the history of the Bennett family, the love that had flourished, the betrayal that had shattered it, and the resilience that had allowed them to endure. Emma and Jason chimed in with their thoughts, adding their perspectives and insights, creating a tapestry of memories that reflected not only Sarah's experience but also the impact it had on them. The sun climbed higher in the sky, illuminating the pages of the journal they had unearthed. With each entry they transcribed, Sarah felt the weight of her great-grandmother's pain lifting, replaced by a sense of liberation. They were no longer just retelling a story, they were actively participating in the healing process. After hours of writing and reflection, they completed the narrative, a powerful testament to the struggles and triumphs of their family. With a sense of accomplishment, Sarah saved the document and looked up at her friends. "We should share this with my family," she said, excitement bubbling within her. "They need to know the truth, just like we do." Emma and Jason exchanged nods of agreement, their faces reflecting the same determination. "Let's do it," Emma said. "Your family deserves to hear this." They planned a family gathering, inviting Sarah's parents, her aunts and uncles, and her cousins to come together at the house that had once been shrouded in darkness. Sarah felt a mix of anxiety and anticipation as the day approached. Would they be receptive to the truths she had uncovered? Would they understand the significance of what had happened? On the day of the gathering, the house buzzed with energy. The familiar sounds of laughter and conversation filled the air as family members arrived, bringing with them a sense of warmth and familiarity. Sarah felt a knot of nervousness in her stomach, but she reminded herself of the purpose behind their gathering. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Sarah gathered her family in the living room. She could see the confusion on their faces as she prepared to share her story. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her voice steady despite the fluttering in her chest. "I have something important to share with you, something that has been passed down through our family for generations." She took a deep breath and recounted the history she had uncovered, the pain of betrayal, and the love that had once flourished in their family. As she spoke, she could see the emotions rising within her relatives: shock, disbelief, and sorrow. But there was also a flicker of understanding as she revealed the truth about her great-grandmother's spirit and the darkness that had haunted them for far too long. "I believe that our family has been bound by this pain, but we have the power to break free," Sarah continued, her voice gaining strength. "By acknowledging our past, we can heal together and honor the memory of those who came before us." Silence enveloped the room as her words sank in. Finally, her mother spoke, her voice trembling. "I never knew. I had no idea what had happened to your great-grandmother," she said, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "We should have talked about this. We should have remembered her." The weight of their shared history hung in the air, a collective realization dawning upon them. One by one, family members began to share their own stories, memories of love, loss, and the impact of their ancestors on their lives. The atmosphere shifted, transforming from one of uncertainty to one of unity and understanding. As the evening wore on, the conversation flowed freely, stories intertwining like threads in a rich tapestry. Laughter and tears mingled as they shared their experiences, the burdens of the past slowly lifting. For the first time in years, the Bennett family felt a sense of closeness, as if the walls that had separated them had finally crumbled. As they sat together, Sarah felt a presence beside her, a gentle warmth that enveloped her, a reminder of the spirits who had guided her on this journey. She knew that her great-grandmother was finally at peace, her story honored and her legacy woven into the fabric of their family. In the days that followed, Sarah worked to preserve the stories they had uncovered. She created a family website, a digital archive where they could share their history, memories, and photographs. It became a space for family members to contribute, to connect, and to honor the generations that had come before them. The Bennett house, once filled with shadows, now resonated with laughter and love. Family gatherings became a regular occurrence, a way to celebrate their shared history and the strength that had emerged from their collective pain. The darkness that had lingered for so long was replaced by the light of understanding and compassion. As Sarah stood in the living room one evening, surrounded by her loved ones, she felt a profound sense of gratitude. They had faced the past together, unraveling the mysteries that had haunted their family for generations. The cycle of betrayal and silence had been broken, replaced by a commitment to honor the memories of their ancestors. "Thank you," she whispered to the spirits that had guided her. "Thank you for leading me to the truth." With each passing day, Sarah felt more connected to her family and their shared history. The bonds forged through understanding and love were unbreakable, and she knew that their story would continue to be told for generations to come. In the heart of the Bennett house, the whispers of the past had transformed into a symphony of voices, each one a testament to resilience, love, and the power of truth. And as long as those stories were shared, the spirits of her ancestors would never be forgotten. As the sun set over the Bennett house, casting a warm golden glow across the familiar landscape, Sarah stood on the porch, reflecting on the incredible journey she had undertaken. The past few weeks had been a whirlwind of emotions: fear, sadness, anger, and ultimately, a profound sense of healing and connection. The echoes of her great-grandmother's voice had led her to uncover a tangled web of family history, and now, those stories were no longer buried beneath layers of silence. With each family gathering, the bonds between her relatives had strengthened, and the walls that had once kept them apart began to crumble. No longer haunted by the darkness of betrayal, the Bennett family had embraced their history, allowing it to inform their present and shape their future. They had transformed their grief into a legacy of love, ensuring that the lessons learned from the past would guide their paths moving forward. Sarah felt a sense of peace wash over her as she thought about the spirits that lingered in the house. Her great-grandmother, along with other ancestors, had found a measure of solace in the truth that had been revealed. She could almost feel their presence, a gentle warmth that wrapped around her, a comforting reminder that they were always with her. In the days that followed, Sarah continued to write, documenting not only her family's history but also her own experiences of growth and healing. The website she had created became a vibrant hub of connection for her family, a place where they could share stories, photos, and memories that would ensure their legacy lived on. It became a living archive, a testament to the resilience of the Bennett family and a reminder of the importance of storytelling in preserving their heritage. The house, once a source of fear and unease, had transformed into a sanctuary filled with laughter and love. Every corner held memories, every creak of the floorboards whispered stories of resilience. Sarah had reclaimed her family's narrative, turning it into a powerful force for unity and healing. As she watched her family come together to celebrate their shared history, Sarah knew that their journey was far from over. They would continue to uncover new stories, honor the memory of those who had come before them, and forge a brighter future together. The cycles of silence and betrayal had been broken, replaced by a commitment to openness and understanding. In the heart of the Bennett house, the whispers of the past had transformed into a beautiful chorus, a reminder that love is stronger than darkness, and that the truth has the power to heal. Sarah smiled, knowing that her great-grandmother's spirit was at peace, and that the legacy of love and resilience would carry on for generations to come. The Bennett family had emerged from the shadows, ready to face whatever the future held together. Subscribe to Hollow Whisper Tales and unlock the secrets of the night.